get one of those.
Star Wars The Mandalorian Chapter 3, The Sin. I don't want to sound like I'm repeating myself because I said the same thing about Chapter 2, but I have to because it's true. The show continues to get better, and Chapter 3 is the best episode out of the 3 so far. There's so much I want to talk about with this one that I'm sure I'm going to forget something and I'm going to remember it after I post this video. It really pushes the story forward and has really close connections to the Clone Wars era of Star Wars. Some viewers on this channel accuse me of being a Clone Trooper fanboy. I won't argue that claim. So you can imagine my level of excitement when they drop these little Clone Wars hints. In fact, this entire episode felt like a live-action version of a Clone Wars episode. And it also gives us some insight as to what kind of person the Mandalorian is under the mask. Who, by the way, we'll refer to as Mando from now on because that's what Carl Weathers refers to him as in the show. So keep in mind there's going to be some light spoilers throughout this review, and I'm going to jump into some Star Wars lore also to explain some things in the episode that more casual fans may not understand or it may fly right over their heads. In Chapter 2, Mando took the baby Yoda with him and left us with some questions on what he was going to do from here. Chapter 3 picks up with them landing on the planet and returning to the Imperial client, and immediately the show creates a sense of tension. It's almost like you're experiencing the situation from the baby's point of view. He has no idea where he is, there's all kinds of underworld criminals hanging around, he's on this strange planet he's never been to before, as far as we know. It's actually kind of scary. Whereas Chapter 1 was more introducing us to his universe, and 2 was establishing the overall premise of the show, Chapter 3 goes all in. Mando goes back to the client to deliver the baby, and just like the audience, he questions why this remnant of the Empire wants him, and he gets no answers.
What are your plans for it?
How uncharacteristic of one of your reputation. You have taken both commission and payment. Is it not the code of the guild that these events are now forgotten?
If you watch carefully, this scene right here, it gives you some immensely important clues. From Chapter 1, I've been trying to figure out who this scientist guy is, Dr. Pershing, and I noticed something real briefly, and I think I know what could be going on with this baby. So let's take a moment and explore that. Dr. Pershing, he looks out of place. This character, his uniform doesn't look immediately like it's from someone working with the Empire. It's very sleek, it's very clean, and in some brief shots, you catch a glimpse of an insignia on his shoulder. That is a huge clue to who he is. This is where the prequel connections really start running deep, and I think Dr. Pershing's going to play an enormous role in the story. Let me demonstrate. Let's go back to Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, and look at all the young Jango Fett clones studying. Look at their shoulders. It's the same symbol. Dr. Pershing is definitely involved in some way with the cloning facilities on Kamino, and later we see the baby Yoda in a little capsule being scanned, and he doesn't want him hurt.
No! No! Please! No! No!
What did you do to it? What did you do to it?
I protected him. I protected him. If it wasn't for me, he would already be dead. Please. Please.
Clearly he's collecting some sort of genetic information from him. I think whoever wants the baby Yoda, probably related to what remains of the Empire, knew that he was Force sensitive and wants to use his DNA to build another clone army. Possibly to rebuild the Empire or something. I may be getting ahead of myself with that theory, but think about it. A bunch of clones powered by the Force, which makes the Mandalorian himself even more important because his actions may affect the entire history of the Star Wars universe as a whole. But the prequel connections don't end there. It's a running theme in this chapter. We also get more flashbacks of Mando as a child, but this time we get quick shots of whoever was attacking him and his family. There's a droid gunship right there. A droid weapon used during the Clone Wars, and also seen in Revenge of the Sith during the droid attack on the Wookiees. And a super battle droid. Assuming the Mandalorian is in his late 30s, early 40s, the timing makes perfect sense for his childhood trauma to be an effect of the Clone Wars directly. These are the details that are so easy to miss in this show, but they work together to complement all eras of Star Wars lore, not just the Disney-created ones. We also get a deeper insight into Mandalorian culture. Since Mando's armor is all messed up from his encounter with the Mudhorn, he goes back to the Mandalorian forger, and she crafts some new badass shiny armor, and also makes some new weapons called whistling birds that are basically miniature homing missiles. These things are awesome.
Now turn and face me. Stand up.
I love this scene because it reminds me of a video game where you just completed your side quests and now you're going to a shop to upgrade your equipment with your experience points and make all your friends jealous with how awesome you look now.
Mando! They all hate you, Mando.
Let me explain some more things here that I've seen a lot of confusion on. The money he gets paid with. Why is it so important to the Mandalorians? So let's jump into some lore. The money that Mando's getting paid with is known as Beskar, also Mandalorian iron, one of the strongest metals in the galaxy. It's so strong that it can actually provide some protection from lightsaber slashes. At one point there was even a full-scale war between Mandalorians and Jedi Knights. So this shows how dangerous the Mandalorians can be. This Beskar was taken during an event they keep referring in the show as the Purge.
These were cast in an Imperial smelter. These are the spoils of the Great Purge. The reason that we live hidden like sand rats.
During the Empire's time, the Empire basically plundered Mandalore and took much of the planet's resources as their own. Mandalorians are incredibly proud people and they want the Beskar back in Mandalorian hands. So that's why this metal is so important to them. And the Mandalorians, they have no love for the Empire, which the Star Wars Rebels series explores in detail. One of my favorite aspects of this episode is that we finally see him interact with other Mandalorians, and they come to blows almost immediately. And the female Mandalorian's a badass. She controls them and puts them in their place right away.
Our world was shattered by the Empire, with whom this coward shares tables.
The Empire is no longer, and the Beskar has returned.
Now you might ask why they're at each other's throats, or why there's not many Mandalorians left. So I'm going to give you some more lore. A Mandalorian is both a people and a way of life. In their early history, the Mandalorians were a people of war existing in tribes and different clans, constantly fighting each other to the point where their entire planet is battered. It's just completely scarred from centuries and centuries of war. As time went on, they became more civilized, and they had to build dome cities to live inside of, leaving their old ways behind. But the people that practiced the old ways, the Mandalorian warriors, became outcasts in society, and they were basically banished to Mandalore's moon Concordia. So constant tension between the new Mandalorians and the warrior caste caused civil wars, terrorist groups trying to retake the planet. Mandalorian warriors basically became boogeymen that lived on the moon. Over time, only a small number of them are left as their culture changed, and they lived as outcasts, away from their society.
Our secrecy is our survival. Our survival is our strength.
Our strength was once in our numbers. Now we live in the shadows and only come above ground one at a time.
Hopefully that clears some aspects of this episode up for some viewers, because there's a lot of pieces of information like this that the show assumes you already know. This chapter also acts as a sort of journey for Mando to decide what kind of person he wants to be, and Pedro Pascal should get huge credit for being able to act behind a helmet that completely hides his face and his expressions, his mannerisms, his motions. With every small glance or pause, you can feel what he's thinking. This isn't something that every actor can pull off successfully. You can see the guilt he feels about turning in the child and doubting his decision every second, until he decides to do something about it. And I want to say something too about subverting expectations. This is something that I hear a lot in defense of The Last Jedi. Everyone expected that story to go one way, and it purposely went a totally different direction just to go against viewer expectations. I argue that subverting expectations isn't always something that works great for the story. It's not always the best choice. In The Mandalorian, he does exactly what you think he's going to do as a viewer, and it flows perfectly with plot points the rest of the story had already started building up to. He goes back to rescue the kid, and he gets to kick a ton of ass doing it. This is what I wanted to see, and it delivered. And I don't know why I keep forgetting to mention this. I put it in my notes for chapter 1 and 2, and I forgot to mention it both times. So let me go ahead and get it out of the way before I forget again. Mando's main weapon, that electro gun thing, fun fact, it was actually modeled after the weapon that Boba Fett carried in his first appearance during the animated segment in the Star Wars Holiday Special. The second reference in this show to acknowledge that thing exists. The rest of this episode is completely action-packed, and it felt like I was watching a big-budget movie. You remember that scene during the final battle in Endgame when the portals open up and all the Marvel characters come pouring out to save the day? That's how this felt. It was so epic. Mando's trying to protect the kid with one hand while trying to shoot with the other in a final stand because all the other bounty hunters have him marked as a target now. It's literally one man and a baby against an army, and then the other Mandalorians just fly in and wreck the place. My favorite has to be the big Mandalorian that he almost got in a fight with the laser chain gun.
Get out of here. We'll hold them off.
You're going to have to relocate the covert.
This is the way.
This is the way.
Chapter 3 ended with a satisfying conclusion, and it's actually a little longer than episode 2, clocking in at 38 minutes. We saw plenty of action, we saw a closer bond forming between Mando and the baby, and from here it seems like he's going to be a man on the run with a target on his back, funded by some really powerful people that haven't quite been revealed yet. I can't praise enough how good this episode was. I was so impressed I looked up the director, Deborah Crow, and then I came to learn that she also happens to be directing the entire Obi-Wan series. It is most definitely in good hands. She has proven that she can direct an amazing Star Wars show. And that was my weekly Mandalorian review. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of this episode. And do you think I might be on the right track with that whole clone theory idea with the baby Yoda? Let me know in the comments. That's all I got for you today. I'll catch you guys later. Since you made it to the end of this video, I assume you enjoyed it, so why don't you go ahead and smash that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss any new content. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, links in the description below, and if you'd like to support the channel, you can join my Patreon or become a channel member. This is Fabian, I love you guys, and I'll see you next time.